Now, you can do quite a bit of work to develop a QFD diagram. You have to conduct a correlation study, and then you have to draw up the diagram. But what are you supposed to do with it once it's finished? That's essentially the gist of this particular scenario. Let's look. Given the original data in scenario 1, okay, where we worked up a correlation study, and the finished QFD model from scenario 2A, that's actually this right here. What should the marketing director, this would be of Lancaster Fleet, recommend? Okay, so the question really is, if you were picking up with the story right here, that particular diagram that's behind me, what are you supposed to do with it? What does it mean? Okay, first off, just to review, the interior of it, the relationship matrix, is expressing to us, for instance, what the major relationships are between, any of these 4 value features, what the customer values in, what is the product, patrol car, onboard information systems, what the buyers value versus what the engineers can manipulate about the system. Pick a particular symbol anywhere, like that symbol right there. What does that mean? Strong negative correlation between, I am pointing to, for instance, helpfulness and autofill activity. See how that symbol is at the intersection of those two? Oh, okay, indicating that, for instance, the more autofill activity, like you type one letter and it fills in the whole rest, it guesses what you want. The more autofill activity in the information system, the lower the scores for helpfulness, right? Higher scores for autofill activity, lower scores for helpfulness. That's what strong negative correlation is. Ooh, that's not good. We don't want low scores for helpfulness. Oh, all right. So, first off, just be advised if you're designing one of these information systems from scratch. This scenario does ask what the marketing director of Lancaster Fleet should recommend based on this. Now, to give this some more context, we could back up. In those earlier scenarios, it was revealed to us what Lancaster Fleet's current product scores among the customers. For instance, current product, so I'm just reviewing actually what we learned in earlier scenarios. Current product, right? Worst, which is to say highest, score for bulkiness. This was back in scenario 1. This is like scenario 2B. Back in scenario 1, we actually saw what Lancaster Fleet scored and what some of its competitors scored for visibility, bulkiness, and whatever. Oh, and Lancaster Fleet got a perfect 10 out of 10 for bulkiness, meaning it was considered the bulkiest of the systems, not a good thing. We would begin with that fact, if we were going to make some recommendations, we would begin with that fact. And another extreme to kind of tune in on is if you want to go back to the original data, Lancaster Fleet also, oh, by the way, engineering noted that it had the largest size of desktop area. They were rating products based on size of screen, size of desktop area, amount of autofill activity, and Lancaster Fleet apparently had largest desktop area. Just go back and look at the scores. It versus there was like 4 other systems that it was being rated against, 3 or 4. It had a 10 out of 10, meaning it had the biggest desktop area. Oh, okay, which isn't necessarily bad. I'm just saying this is one of the places we begin. It's like, okay, where are we right now? Is there anything that's particularly extreme? Because go back to bulkiness. Interesting. Go back to the QFD diagram. Do you notice that for bulkiness, size of desktop area, there is some positive correlation between the size of desktop area and bulkiness? Ah, interesting. You know what the first recommendation, if I was the marketing director, would definitely be investigate this. Reduce size of desktop. Why? Because we're getting such bad scores for bulkiness, okay? And we're already way bigger than everybody else, which if they can have smaller desktop areas, we could at least investigate it. So based on this, that'd be my first recommendation. Oh, and wait a minute. I'm looking at the diagram, and do you notice that size of desktop area, there is this strong negative correlation between it and another technical specification, the size of the screen. Meaning if we make it smaller, there's room to make this one larger. They work against each other. Second recommendation. Consider increase to size of screen. Okay, and you might be challenging me on this. Why? Improve score on bulkiness. We get a big score now, but bulkiness is not a nice thing. Okay, if we reduce this, we get a smaller score. That's a nice thing. And improve on, now what would we improve on? If we could make the size of the screen larger here, what would improve? Do you notice strong positive correlation with visibility? Right, so if we make this smaller, we drive bulkiness down, plus we can make the size of the screen bigger, connecting through that, right? And then that increases visibility. And that would be a good thing, because if you want to review the data on visibility, which is a positive thing, originally Lancaster Fleet, I think they only scored 5 out of 10. I mean, it wasn't the absolute worst in the world, but customers were indicating that they weren't particularly strong on visibility either. So, based on, now that we have clarified where the significant links are, this would be a logical recommendation for moving forward with Lancaster Fleet's onboard patrol car information systems.